What habits or routines have you developed in the past 12 months that you see skyrocket your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, so the first one would be at any point in time when I am reading, like just reading books, constantly learning, like that is when I see a ton of growth in our company because it's constantly making me think about different ideas. It's making me think about just different things that this author, almost like this mentor in this book, is teaching me.
Welcome to the Beyond the Business podcast. We got Jack Dumoulin here with us in the house. He's a co-owner of School Hard Knocks, an Excel champion, and entrepreneur. I'd like to welcome in. Jack, how's it going today?
What's going on, man? Glad to be here.
Glad to be here. Our show is super simple, super easy. We got short question section, long question section, and millionaire insight. This is the insight you've gained from the last 20 years or just your life in general. Right off the bat, though, we got 23 AI-generated questions. I want you to just choose 3 numbers.
Oh, man. Oh, this is pretty cool. So I'm going to go with 3, 18, and we'll go 10.
Okay, question 3. How would you describe the mission or purpose behind your work?
So currently right now, like as the co-founder of School Hard Knocks, School of Mentors, kind of the big reason for why we started the channel School Hard Knocks was 2 main reasons. First was we had I'd started School Hard Knocks with my brother James and my friend Josh. We all kind of grew up in the Washington, D.C. area. And over there in the Washington, D.C. area, it's very federal, very corporate, meaning like it's not super entrepreneurship focused. So it's very focused and centered around government jobs, policy, like a lot of stuff that has to do with the government. And so there wasn't necessarily a huge collaborative effort of entrepreneurs there in that city. And so that's why James, Josh, and myself kind of gravitated towards that. And we wanted to seek something kind of more entrepreneurial and creative. We, although living in DC, we're still like very fortunate enough to have a ton of mentors that we grew up with and were able to talk with, whether through sports, Boy Scouts, what have you. And so we wanted to create this channel to provide kind of a mentors at scale for people that didn't have access to those mentors like we did growing up. Because we realized it's just like, hey, like having that access and being able to talk to a lot of people that are ahead of us really helped us shape our path for success. The other reason was we weren't really satisfied with the way that financial literacy and entrepreneurship was really being taught in the traditional school system. Mm-hmm. And so we wanted to find a way to be able to kind of introduce topics like entrepreneurship and maybe some financial literacy from people that have made it successful to the world on a larger scale that might not be taught to them in the classroom. So that what I would say is kind of our 2 missions is like mentors and then exposing more people to entrepreneurship and what's possible with that.
I love that. Question 18, how do you define leadership and what qualities do you think make a great leader?
Yeah, so the biggest quote that I think that could resonate with anybody that everyone can take with them on leadership is leaders eat last. So you would kind of introduce me, I'd won an Excel championship when I was in high school, became the world champion of Excel at 17, beating out over 2 million people in a Microsoft competition. And so that had prompted me to get a lot of companies to reach out for me to want to do work for them on Excel. That whole journey ultimately prompted me into entrepreneurship just because I was able to do projects for multiple companies. So I built a company around it. But a company called Buc-ee's, if you're familiar, I don't know if you're familiar with Buc-ee's, the gas station, but the company Buc-ee's had reached out to me, and pretty much the owner had hired me to like come work with him while I was going to school here in Austin, Texas at University of Texas. And one of the things that I took away from him is he would always, it wouldn't matter who else was in the room with him, he would always be the last to speak. He would get every single person's opinion on the topic of conversation or input and would always challenge and call on everyone in the room to be able to speak. And so that's where he would get the input of his entire team that he's hired in order for him to make the best judgment call on where his decision is going to go as the CEO. I also think that, if you look at someone like Gary Vee, like he describes of like a big saying of his is your employees don't work for you, you work for them. And so for me, that's why leaders eat last is the best way to describe leadership, is because as a leader, you should be the last person on your team that you think about at all times. You should be thinking about like, how can I set my employees up for success? How can I set my co-founders up for success? How can I set even my customers up for success? And just even if you're like a team on a captain, like how can I make the teammates better around me. A lot of people that played with like Michael Jordan, right? They said that they feared him, right? Well, it's almost just like a lot of like him instilling that kind of like fear and drive in his teammates rose them to raise to his level of play. I think Kobe Bryant's someone that does that as well, if you want a non-business example. But that's what I would describe leadership as: leaders eat last.
Question 10. Who are some of your biggest influences or mentors?
Oh, man. So I would say I have both mentors that I personally know and mentors that are kind of, I would say, like kind of on the more, they're more worldly known, I would say. So I'm a Christian. So for me, follow the word of Jesus Christ. That to me is like super important from a business standpoint. Probably some of the best mentors that I had kind of growing up were one, my scoutmaster, Doug Dorr, my father, who was a colonel in the military, and then my uncle, who was the COO of a publicly traded company. And so those three gentlemen really instilled in me three different qualities: discipline, integrity, and just the overall wanting to strive for success in the business world. Scoutmaster definitely instilled discipline, in meaning like always, his famous quote was always, there's never enough time to do things right, but there's always time to do it again. It's like everybody always wants to take the shortcut to do things, but it's like you ended up just spending trying to do shortcuts, so you did it wrong and you have to go back and do it again. So it's like that's where I got discipline from. Integrity, my father's probably has the highest integrity of anybody that I've ever met. Just being a colonel in the military, he always did things right, even when nobody was looking. And then my uncle, I mean, clearly achieved massive success in the business world, getting to number 2 at a publicly traded company. So just having those influences and mentors around me throughout my life has helped me just become a better man, better business owner. And I would say I have 2 influences in like the entrepreneurial world that I really enjoy: Elon Musk and Gary Vee. I would say Elon's kind of like the billionaire influencer that I like to follow, and then Gary Vee is kind of like more in like the millionaire level, and he's also in media, so that helps. So yeah.
100%. Dive into the long question section a little bit. I know you talked about your story, becoming the Excel champion and getting that corporate job with Buc-ee's. Why did you decide not to stick there and to pivot into something new and something unknown, like media?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously I had a background in tech, but also at the time you saw things like TikTok was really popping off in kind of 2019, 2020. That's kind of when like I was still working in like the corporate environment and also kind of doing tech work for my own business. Just the way that the creator economy was booming and just seeing the way that people were able to make a lot of money and just the trajectory of it. That was one thing as to why I really wanted to dive into media with James and Josh. Mm-hmm. But as far as venturing off into entrepreneurship, ever since I had won that championship, I kind of was very geared on wanting to be an entrepreneur and working for myself in some capacity. I tried doing my own business from the Excel consulting stuff, but ultimately kind of realized I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I was really good at it, but ultimately it just wasn't work that, despite being good at it, I was not, my heart, like I didn't really have a heart in it. Like I wasn't wanting to do it necessarily long term after doing it for a while. But I loved entrepreneurship. I loved the whole facet of building a business. The people that inspired me were people that built businesses. And so when I would spend time in like the corporate environment, I just felt like almost kind of in a box, like almost as if there was just something more for me out there to do. Even if it would have been more risky to like go out and do something that's like not a safe job and like go all in on it, then I'd rather do that now when I can put all my cards on the table, when I don't have like a family to support, I don't have like a marriage, I'm young, might as well like go all in on it now before like I have a bunch of like life decisions kind of tying me down. And yeah, I mean, that was mainly it. I really just wanted to pursue and be an entrepreneur, do my own thing, take the risk. Another big thing that I saw kind of like looking back on that is like I saw a lot of people in like the corporate environment who were much older than me, and they seemed very unhappy. They just seemed like just the work they were doing wasn't necessarily fulfilling. Even after getting out, and this is a bit looking back in hindsight, right? Out of college and going the pure entrepreneurial route, I had a lot of friends that went the corporate route. And all of my friends that are entrepreneurs, including myself, absolutely love what they do. And all my friends that went the corporate route are honestly probably not very happy. And so it's like just kind of looking at that discrepancy, it's just like I'm really glad with the decision I made going the entrepreneurial route, just because I do know that like the work that I'm doing is a lot more fulfilling than trying to grind the corporate ladder.
Why do you think that split is so drastic? Because you were describing the split as like black and white. Is it because of like the bad place corporate is currently, or is it just like how easy it is to be entrepreneurs, or just any of your thoughts about the idea?
So the thing is I don't necessarily think it's super easy to be an entrepreneur. It's actually very hard. So I wouldn't even recommend that people that are in like a corporate environment, like if entrepreneurship's not for, like, I'm not saying like everybody should be an entrepreneur, like businesses need working. Like you can go work for a company that's entrepreneurial and be an entrepreneur within that company. I think the problem is that a lot of people, they go to school and they get a degree that, they think they're promised like holds this like huge weight that's going to transfer to success in the corporate, in the real world, and it really doesn't. So even like people like that, I know that they're having a hard time even getting a job, but they think that they can get one just because they got the degree and things like that. Part of the problem with like the corporate world and the environment is it's just there's no, unless you're a company where you have a lot of room to grow, it's the same thing day in, day out. Entrepreneurship's not easy, it's very hard, but at least it's very dynamic. And if you're someone that's like a problem solver and you're very creative and you basically want to think outside the box, entrepreneurship is probably a really good path for you. It's not easy, but it's like once you do find that some sort of success, like even I would say even when we weren't even in like a successful place with Hard Knocks, like very at the beginning, I still enjoyed that more than like going to an office and like taking a salary. Whereas like I think that the discrepancy is so vast, it's just because I think a lot of people that are in kind of like the corporate environment, they just need some sort of space to grow and be able to really like express themselves and be able to like challenge themselves. Whereas like a lot of times they're probably just kind of stuck in the day-to-day same sort of thing. It's just a routine. And it's not really, they're not able to really grow in their career. And they see like maybe other people that are kind of doing their own things surpassing them, even though it's a lot harder.
Yeah, I use the word easy because I know a lot of people are saying that, hey, it's easier nowadays than it used to be.
Yes, I would agree. It's a lot easier now to build a business than it was 20 years ago, for sure, with the internet.
30 years ago.
Yeah.
When it comes to how you plan to be consistent in business, dive into that business side of things, what do you think some of the strategies or habits are that you've added?
So the first thing that I would say for this is that you really need to think long term. Some of the best business owners on the planet, they think long term. Like if you read the book The Bezos Letters about Jeff Bezos, he thinks in decades. Like he was thinking about 2-day shipping in 1999. He thinks so long term. For us at Hard Knocks, to give you a more personal example, like especially at the beginning, like we reinvested almost all the money that we were making. On paper, like James, Josh, and I, if you were to just take the money that we were making, we're making more than like a lot of our friends that went to college and then got like the corporate job, right? But our take-home pay was a lot lower than that because we were reinvesting everything that we made back into the business, except for just taking what we needed out to pay for our expenses, because we're thinking long-term. And so we set up our business in a way to where it preserves the business to be around for a while. And so like we'll take less money home and we keep a lot of money in the business. So that would be the first thing, is just like if you think long-term, not only in just your vision for the company, but also financially. Like it's like, okay, like you closed like a $5,000 a month client, right? Like don't take, $4K of that out to go live on. Like take the minimal out that you need to go live on and reinvest the rest in it to help you get the next client to add to your repertoire, that sort of thing. So that's how we've been able to plan ahead. A consistency basis is really setting up systems, and just like systems and processes for stuff is super important. In addition to that is like a system just for pretty much everything. Like for us, like we have a pretty much a system of like, hey, like, okay, we know we need to go get YouTube. We need to go film YouTube videos. Okay, so like let's book travel. We're gonna go film. Then we're gonna come. Like basically just like mapping things out. Like if you have a system for almost everything, like we have a system for our newsletter. We have a system for our agency. Systems will help make things consistent. Whereas like if planning things out, like having that long-term vision, it's a lot easier to like just make better decisions for the future. And then for like consistent and keeping that system. Another thing with that would also just be accountability. Like if you're a solopreneur, I would get like either other entrepreneurial friends or a co-founder that can keep you accountable. Like we have a team of 3 as like the owners of the company. So for us, like we're able to keep each other accountable to make sure like we're getting done, and like we'll check each other, being like, hey, like is this good to go? If you're just a solopreneur and you don't have someone to keep you accountable, you're really only competing with yourself. Mm-hmm. And if yourself is not someone that's being very competitive right now, your business is only going to move as slow as you. So if you could get a co-founder or get some entrepreneurial friends that you can meet with and really bounce ideas off of, or just kind of set goals to keep each other accountable, then you can help move forward. So that's what I would say. Like long-term vision, set up systems, have some sort of accountability for sure.
And when it comes to accountability, obviously you have the group of three, right? That you started at the beginning, you've been through this whole journey with. A lot of people don't have that group of three. How would you described it in your videos as a board of advisors?
Yep.
But how would you build that board of advisors? Or what tangible steps do you have?
Yeah. So this doesn't necessarily need to be an entrepreneur. I think like if you could find other entrepreneurs, it's really helpful because it's, whereas like if you join a community like School of Mentors, if you join just really any sort of like kind of cohort of people, and you can really just be straight up of like, hey, like I'm trying to accomplish this. I want to help. What are you trying to accomplish? Like, let's help each other get there by just like literally just ask, make the connection. I would say like if you don't have, if like your business is in a position where you need co-founders, then that's where it's like you need to kind of get those people around you. They can help you. Like for example, like if you go to the gym by yourself, you're only going to work as hard as you think you're going to work. But if you go to the gym with somebody else, then you can push each other to be like, oh, like get that extra set in, get the extra rep in, those sort of things. If you're surrounding yourself with highly motivated people, that's why like we had a call with Peter Kell, and one of Peter Kell, he's a $40 million AI entrepreneur. And one of the things that like he talked about was you were the sum of the 5 closest people to you. So the people around you also need to be motivating. They need to like, if you are in a circle right now and you feel that like the people around you aren't motivating, they're not wanting to go on the same path as you to reach their goals. They don't have to be building the same business. They just need to be sort of like in tune of like, I want something more than what I have now. And if you're not around those people, then that would be the first step, is to like go and find people that are motivated and entrepreneurial, whether it's online or like in your local community. Then you kind of have a group of people that are going to understand you and how you work. And so like those people can keep you accountable in different areas of your life. So if you find somebody that's really motivated in fitness, then you can potentially either go work out with this person or just keep each other accountable online about like, hey, did you work out today? Did you get your diet right? Like those sort of things. Like, do you have somebody that's spiritual for you? Like, you know, do you for your mental health? Do you have somebody that can help you with your business, your work, to help keep you accountable for that? The ways that you go find that is like, first, literally go find motivated people. And then even better if you can find people that are like entrepreneurs, because if you're building a business, because if you're an entrepreneur, then that means that like a different entrepreneur might have tools and resources that you don't have, that they're strengths in, that you can always call upon and ask and be like, hey, like I'm trying to do this. Can you help me out? That sort of thing. And so that's like why accountability is just so important, just because it's going to help move you towards your goal, but it also is going to surround you around the right people that can help you get to where you need to go as well.
100%, 100%. I had a question about this show, the School of Hard Knocks. So I know what you see is you just approach them on the street, but is that always the case, or is it just like you schedule it beforehand, or what's the case behind that?
So believe it or not, like almost every single one that we do is like random. Like it is like on the street. Especially when we first started. So like when we first started doing the interviews, nothing was set up. Like it was all random. We literally would go downtown Austin 3 or 4 times a week for 2 hours a day.
Millionaire, not millionaire.
What's up?
And you would just look around, millionaire, not millionaire, millionaire.
Well, we would just go have conversations. So we would go to the wealthiest districts in Austin. I see. So we would go to like there's wealthy high rises downtown. There's the finance district, tech district. We would go and we would literally just like kind of camp outside of buildings and just like go walk up to people that looked interesting, like that looked like they would be interesting to talk to. And so we would go up, we would just try to have a conversation with us. You get a lot of rejections, but kind of the way that I describe it in one of the courses in the classroom of School of Mentors about like how you can network with people is like our pitch was literally straightforward of this, like we tried to establish credibility. We tried to be intentional with our pitch, and we also wanted to provide the person we were talking to some sort of quick value. Alex Ramosi actually talks about this in the book $100 Million Leads. Like if you're wanting to like cold DM someone, like you need to do those 3 things. Is like credibility, intentional, create quick value for them. And so we did the same thing with our pitch. When we go up and try to talk to people, we would literally just like we would like, this was literally our pitch. We'd be like, hey, excuse me, sir, excuse me, ma'am. My brother and I, we started a channel at the University of Texas at Austin where we just go around and we ask successful entrepreneurs their advice for the younger generation. Wonder if we could just get 5 minutes of your time so we could give back to the younger generation, get them some advice for aspiring entrepreneurs. Could we do a quick interview? And so we would get a decent amount of rejections, but we'd also get a decent amount of people that they would want to help out because one, we were going to UT at the time, so we would leverage that as credibility because School of Hard Knocks was not a big enough name yet. When we started to interview more successful people, like we got an interview with Mark Cuban randomly on the street. we would then go around saying, we interviewed people like Mark Cuban, the CEO of so-and-so, the CEO, because that establishes credibility really quickly. So they don't think it's like a joke for TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
2, we're intentional. We just want 5 minutes of your time, ask you some questions. And then the way that this provides them value is majority of the people we walked up to have never been asked for advice in their entire life, and they've had a 40-year successful career. So this is their opportunity to give back. It's valuable for them. And people have ego boosts. Like people have big egos. So if you can get them to be able to like talk on camera, like they're going to take the opportunity to do it. But more than that, usually successful people, they want to help other people. So if it's just 5 minutes and they can share some advice for people, to go back and answer your question, that's really what we would do. And that we would spend 3 or 4 days a week for several hours downtown doing that. As the channel got bigger, we started having some more notable people. They would DM us, things like that. And anybody with kind of like a decently big brand, like we would set that up ahead of time. So those are usually set up. But a lot of our content is honestly really random and just like a pure chance on the street. We just like put ourselves in a position to be able to connect and meet those high level people. So it's like, if like I was saying earlier, like how do you find those people to be your board of advisors? How do you go find a mentor? You need to go follow the money. Like we talked to Grant Cardone on a podcast, and his biggest thing was like follow the money. And it sounds so cliche and stupid, but it's just like, no, like literally go to like, if you don't have any wealthy or successful influences around you, go to where it is and literally just like try to connect with people there. And then you have a better chance of being able to find what you're looking for. If you just go to where like, it sounds so simple, and that's literally all it is. Like that's where we would go. Like we wouldn't go to like the podunk rundown areas of Austin. Like we would go to like where the rent is $10,000 a month for an apartment.
And have you ever felt like a imposter? How do you deal with that feeling?
Yeah, absolutely. So I dealt with this like honestly pretty early on. From an imposter point. The biggest way that you can honestly handle imposter syndrome is just by taking action. And that's the way that I looked at it. Like obviously being like a young entrepreneur, you kind of feel it all the time. You're just kind of like, oh, like, am I really at a place that's successful? And it's just like, there's so many things that like you accomplish that you can just help other people with. It's almost as if you're framing. Like if you frame yourself as successful, like one of the big things that a lot of like the wealthy people that we talk to is they have this very good duality of like, they think they're the best. Like they can reach for the stars, reach for the moon. They're better than their competition. But they also have this humility where they feel like I haven't done shit yet. Like I haven't even achieved like my highest dreams yet. And so that duality keeps kind of like their backs against the wall, hungry for everything. And so I think like the problem with imposter syndrome is like people get stuck in a place where they think they're not worthy of being there. The way that you kind of overcome that is just by taking action to keep proving to yourself that you deserve to be there because of the success that you have within you to be able to accomplish what you want to accomplish. So I think that like the way that I kind of I had a little bit of imposter syndrome when I kind of won the Microsoft thing. And then when Hard Knocks started getting a lot of like credibility and publicity, because like at the time, like even though Hard Knocks was booming, we were investing so much money into the business that like we weren't even like making a ton of money ourselves. So it's just like, oh, like people are like, oh, this thing is like blowing up really successful. But like at the same time, like we weren't at the beginning, like we weren't really even like making that much money. And so it was really just like channeling that energy into action instead of worrying about like, oh, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. That sort of thing is really how you can overcome that. Just keep proving to yourself that you're worthy of being where you are because you put in the work to get there.
And did you feel that way even in the beginning when you guys were doing interviews? Because I feel like if you're in this wealthy neighborhood and you're like, I'm here for an interview, you just feel like, I don't belong in this neighborhood.
So that's the funny thing about that, right? So a lot of the entrepreneurs that we've had on live calls in the community, they have said that the way that they became successful is they pretended and acted to themselves like they were the successful millionaire way before that they were. And they almost manifested themselves in getting to that point. Like for example, like Edwin Arroyave, he was our second live call. He runs a $200 million a year solar company. And he said that the way that he scaled his company was that whenever he hit a figure mark, he would just pretend and act like that. Like he was like, when he got to 6 figures, he's like, okay, what would a 7-figure entrepreneur do? How would they act? I need to act like that. Because when you act like that, your habits, the way you run your company, everything, it formulates that. I have a good friend, his name's Grant Mitt. He runs like a $30 million solar company here in Austin. And he basically like we went out to lunch with him, and this was like very early on in Hard Knocks. It's about 1.5 years in of the Hard Knocks journey. We've been doing it for about 3 years. So this is about halfway through. And he basically says like, you guys need to run your company every day like you're a $100 million CEO. And we're like, we hadn't even made $1 million yet. So how are we going to visualize being 100? And literally the way that advice is so powerful because it just makes us think differently. it kind of gets into the terms of like the way that we set our systems, our delegation. Like the biggest thing is like, don't do minimum wage activities. Like $100 million CEO is not worried about the price of the toilet paper in the bathroom at his company. You got to like pretty much almost like put yourself in the shoes of where you want to go. And so even though like you feel like, oh, like I'm in this wealthy neighborhood, like I just, it's like at the end of the day, like I want to get to where these people are. So I need to surround myself with that. That's pretty much how we try to kind of get out of that, out of the imposter syndrome.
100%. And currently you're developing habits or getting into habits. What habits or routines have you developed in the past 12 months that you see skyrocket your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah. So the first one would be at any point in time when I am reading, like just reading books, constantly learning, like that is when I see a ton of growth in our company, because it's constantly making me think about different ideas. It's making me think about just different things that this author, almost like this mentor in this book, is teaching me. So I would say like there's a lot of people that they read or they call themselves readers, but like if you actively want to continuously elevate yourself as an entrepreneur, I highly recommend you read business books that are out there, books that are kind of recommended to you. Like actually go and read them, because they will help formulate your business. Like Alex Hormozi's book, $100 Million Offers, is like a huge, impactful book for us. It just helps elevate the way that we were charging prices for our services. That's one habit, is what I would say. And the second would be is like learn how to delegate. Like the way that we have helped scale our company is by actually like hiring and bringing people in that have like been able to help remove a lot of those minimum wage activities that we as operators don't need to do anymore. We have a marketing agency attached to Hard Knocks where we do a lot of the marketing for a lot of the entrepreneurs that we interview. Mm-hmm. With that, we can't be worried about trying to edit every single video for this person's page when we already have videos that we have to edit for our brand. So what do we have to do? We had to go and hire a team of editors to come in and be able to edit videos for our clients. So I would just say like a big habit that I think can transform your life. And this also kind of coincides with, getting the board of advisors, getting other people around you, is like you need a team. And I know that sounds like, hey, you might be in a position where you don't have a team, but you need to learn how to delegate if you want to elevate as a business owner. Delegate to elevate. It's always like kind of the best saying. It really is. It's cloning yourself. A book that is phenomenal for this is The E-Myth. Pretty much like that's probably the most recommended book on any of our live mentorship calls has been The E-Myth Revisited. By far, it's the number one book I would recommend any business owner, because it gets you out of the framework of thinking of like, I have to do this, 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 and this for my business. And it'd be like, okay, what are really the activities that are going to bring revenue in? And what is you just doing mundane work that just has to get done that you could hire out somebody at a lower pay grade? And so delegation and reading for sure are the habits that have definitely transformed.
The next couple of questions will be on my community, Empower You. So you can check them out here. But diving into a little bit more of my journey in entrepreneurship, right? And risk in general. I feel like risk isn't super important, but it's hard to know where to put your risk or what to do. So how do you think you mitigate risk, or what's your thought process about risk?
So the way that we kind of handle risk, or at least myself, the way that I look at it is that you have to kind of weigh like, what is the opportunity cost if I don't do this thing? And so like, for example, like probably the biggest risk that I've ever taken was like not going the corporate route when I did have like some pretty safe lined up opportunities for myself and going deep into entrepreneurship. For me, the opportunity cost was like never knowing whether or not I could have just accomplished my dreams out the gate. Like if I go all in, like sure, maybe it could not work out for a few years and then I would have to go back and get a job. But like for me, like the opportunity cost of this, like not giving myself that opportunity, like that would weigh on my shoulders so heavily. So the risk for me was like no brainer. It's like, I think like one of the biggest traits of a lot of the millionaires that we interview is like their willingness to handle and be able to take risks. I think that if you're someone that struggles with taking risks, the best way that you can learn how to take more risks is just to start small and like take risks on smaller things and get yourself a little bit more used to that. For example, it would be, it's just like, oh, like I don't want to like hire this out because someone's not going to do as good enough job for me as me. Well, then you're going to be stuck doing this mundane task forever. Like as a business owner, you're always going to be stuck doing this. You can't grow your company in this spot where it's just like, hey, what if you did hire someone? And okay, maybe it's not going to get done the same of you, but what if it was like 80% just as good? Might not be perfect, but the work still got done. And so it's like, that's an example of something small. And if you start there, just start taking smaller risks, it's going to make you a lot more comfortable with risk. I think like for us, like at least at Hard Knocks, I know that's something that like we had to do is just like, hey, like we just had to get more comfortable with it because we were just taking risks more often. I think that's probably the best way to sum up and answer your question is that if you're somebody that's just like struggling with taking risks and you need help doing it, then just start small. Like you don't need to go out and put all your money on, into an investment property tomorrow, but just like learn and get really comfortable with like how much pressure you can handle.
Mhm.
So
I think fear of risk and fear of just like different things in general can be interrelated. I know something I did. Tim Ferriss recommended this. It's just asking for 10% off, and it's like, what's the worst that can happen at the end of the day? You know, they say
yeah,
yes, they say no.
you're in the same place that you were a minute ago, literally. Or
like,
you could have gotten 10% off.
Yeah,
literally.
And it's just like you never know, and you'd be surprised the number of people that are just like, okay, and just that conversation or putting yourself in that uncomfortable situation moves you to become more confident, I think, in different aspects of your life.
Yeah, no, it's. I think people they're just like so. I think a big area in life where people struggle with this is dating. I feel like so many people are just like afraid of rejection when it's just like, hey, like if you let's say you're a guy and you find this girl attractive, like just go up and introduce yourself. Like set the expectations so low. Like it's like because people like they put their expectations up here where it's just like, hey, like set them low. Like worst just gonna say is just no, and you're in the same exact spot that you were. So
And if she says no, it's not a self-reflection of you at all.
exactly.
It's just like there's so many reasons she would say no. It's like, oh, it's not a good time. She's busy. Like so many other things. And it's just like a number game at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, volume negates luck.
100%. Obviously, you talk to a lot of millionaires, right? You talk to a lot of people in different industries. It's important to know the right vehicle. So how do you know if you're in the right vehicle or like the right career, the right trajectory? You know what I mean by that?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first way that you can kind of know is like one is like if you do have those people around you that like I would find a mentor that is able to kind of like look at your business and be able to kind of tell you like, hey, this is like going somewhere, things like that. If you have other people around you that can kind of like hold your feet to the fire of just like, hey, is this business needing where it needs to go? The other thing is too is just like look at there is a point in the book $100 million Offers by Alex Hormozi where he kind of breaks down like what are like good indications of like a business that's like you're setting yourself up for success. Like for one for example is like is it a dying industry or is it a growing industry? What are the margins that you have? For example, like if you're like within like if you want to know the right vehicle like within your industry, like for example, like it's probably the same work to sell $100,000 homes as it is $1 million homes. You just got to put yourself in the right ballpark. So you just need to also just see like how much money do you want to make. In regards to making sure you're in the right vehicle, I can just sum it up right here. One, if you have a mentor, then they'll be able to look at your business and kind of tell you like, hey, you're at the right trajectory of like your goals. You also just need to look at your goals and you need to see this like, are there companies that in this industry that are making the money that I want to make? Like for example, if like your goal is like to make $10 million a year, are there companies in your industry that can get you there? And if that's the case, then it's like, okay, then you're probably in the right vehicle. But if like the average company like in your space like barely even gets close to that number, then it's just you're probably not setting yourself up for success. So
do you think people should think about their career that way as well when it comes to the vehicle?
100%. Like if you're not an like that's one of the things with like people like in corporate positions, right? It's like they get the degree doing something that they might not necessarily have liked, and then they go into a job that they're probably not going to like anyways, but they just think it's going to pay them well, it's going to be safe, those sorts of things. Where it's just like if you're dynamic and you can kind of look at like other industries out there that might be really successful, then it really just comes down to what you want. If you want to make more money, then go find the industries that are high paying jobs. Sometimes that's not going to be like a lot of that is medical, a lot of that's law. But if you didn't go to medical school or law school, then like you can't really pursue those fields. So you got to go find like it really is just it is the same for corporate too. It's just you got to go find the positions and industries that are making that money. You just got to go get a mentor doing that. Like probably some of the best advice that someone could get is if you're at a place where you're at zero, but you know you're a hard worker, you know you're ambitious, and you have a decent idea of what you want to do, like go find the person that is doing what you want to do and go work for them for free for like 90 days or just for like low pay. And this is really all it's going to do is just like elevate you to that level. Like they might say no, but like go find 50 people that are doing what you want to do and go shadow and mentor them. When you do that, it exposes you not only to that higher level of success in that field and industry, but you get a ton of connections because you're meeting the people that they meet. And you also just get a ton of knowledge right off the bat. So if you wanted to go start your own thing, you learn from the best. So it's really like, even if you're at a career path doing something that's doing really good money, but there's not a lot of longevity, like it's not the right vehicle or it's not something you enjoy, then you just need to have a little bit of humility and go work for little pay or like no money, and go literally throw yourself to go work for the people that you want to be. It'll put you in that place with low risk to them. You literally are just gonna work for them for little to no money. So,
and I feel like if you do that, you're able to copy what works. I feel like a lot of the millionaires, billionaires, just people in general, you don't want to recreate the wheel. Like if there's something that's working, you might as well just do the thing that already works.
Yeah, you took the expression right out of my mouth, dude. I was literally about to say, like most entrepreneurs didn't reinvent the wheel. Like they literally just, most companies, they just do what somebody else does, but they just differentiate themselves in that field, pretty much.
I know you've talked to a lot of millionaires like Gary Vee, Andy Elliott, and just successful people in general. What was the main insight that you gained from them?
Yeah, so I would say that across the board, millionaires that like we've seen, the kind of the bottom of the totem pole millionaire all the way up to the most successful one, the traits that I'm about to say, the ones closer to like the top that are the 9-figure earners, like they embody these traits so much more than the ones that are like probably on like the 7-figure side. But it's common throughout the entire spectrum. The first would be is they're involved in some sort of cash flowing asset, whether that's a business, real estate, something that can cash flow for them. Like it just is like, that's, if you're wondering of just like how these people get so wealthy, is like they have a business that cash flows really well with like high MRR, annual recurring revenue. They have real estate properties that pay them every single month. Like they're building like generational wealth. And the higher you go up the ladder, the more cash flow you see. So like if you're wondering like, okay, like what's like, the more you chase like a cash flowing asset, the better, whether that's like a real estate property or just building a business that generates a lot of cash flow for you. The second trait would be all across the board, like there is some degree of risk that was taken in order to be successful. We talked about risk earlier. If you're somebody that's afraid of failure, just know that like you're not going to achieve your dreams and goals or success that you want to achieve if you don't take the leap and actually take that risk. Like we love a huge core value of our team at Hard Knocks is take the risk or lose the chance. It comes down to the sole fundamental of like, you're afraid to go talk to that person. Well, that could have been an interview that could have gotten 10 million views. Go talk to them. Like take the risk or lose the chance. And that connection also could have been an agency client for us. It could have been an interview for our newsletter. It could have been a live call for the community. But because, we're afraid to go talk to that person, you didn't get all these great business opportunities. So that's a core value for us. But yeah, they took some sort of risk. And the ones that are closer to the top, they're taking more risk than the ones at the bottom. The third would be, this is similar to risk, but it's more intentional, is they have a great relationship with leverage, the word leverage. And so this really ultimately comes down to boil is they trade their time, they trade their money for time. So they reinvest their money in order to invest in other people to come work for them to where they can delegate things to build their company, or they just like will invest money into things to just give them more time to do other things, whether that's for them to enjoy their life or just to keep building the business up higher. And again, like, so if you're someone that's just like really like if you're starting a business, you want to start generating cash flow and then reinvest that money into getting people to come in and replace you as the business owner. So then you can just keep growing areas of the business and really focusing on revenue generating activities. So that's the third thing, is they have a great relationship with leverage. And again, the higher you go up the totem pole, the people at the top running a 9-figure business most often have more employees than a 7-figure business. So think about how much like they're having to leverage capital to reinvest into people to work for them in the company. The last thing would be is something that I touched on earlier, is from a mentality standpoint, is they put themselves at the top. Like they think that they are better than everybody else. They have this intrinsic of this, like, I am the best at what I do. No question. I'm the best marketer. I'm the best real estate investor. I'm the best this. And so they act like it. But at the same time, they don't get comfortable. So they keep themselves humble enough to where their back's against the wall, to where they are going to be focused on, like they're focused on the next at bat. They don't care that they just went 3 for 3 with 3 home runs. They're concerned about the next at bat that they might strike out and lose the game, because nobody's going to care about the 3 home runs if they lose the game. But if at bat 4 is coming up in the game and it's the 9th inning, they got to be prepared to hit that next home run. So that's literally the 4 of what me personally. There's a lot of stuff, like if you're a member of the Community School Mentors, like we have a whole video called Lessons from Millionaires, like detailing like probably 8 different traits. Those 4 are the ones that I think are the most prominent. Another one would be is like, there's not like, even though like they think they're the best, like really ego is a lot of time is like, on the floor. And I mean this for like small stuff. Like a lot of young entrepreneurs, like they like to play games, like, oh, like they took 2 hours to text me back, I'm going to take 2 hours to text them back, things like that. Like, no, people that are rich and wealthy, like they are quick. Like they don't do like weird, mysterious stuff. Like they'll send you a message at 2 a.m. just with no remorse, but they just get it done. They're going to take action. They're not going to be afraid to call someone for help. Like they will admit things that they don't know. Like a lot of young entrepreneurs, they get insecure and they're just like, they don't want to admit they don't know something. But the second you admit you don't know something, you just now open yourself an opportunity to learn and get help that you actually really need. It's like successful people do that all the time. They'll admit like, I'm a great technical person, but I suck at sales. So I'm going to call up my friend that's like really good at sales to like potentially come work for me. Or like a better example would be is like, oh, I'm a business owner and I suck at copywriting, but I need to put this ad out for my business. Let me be humble and call someone that is good at copywriting. And so they don't afraid to ask for help. They're quick. Like those are all like small things, but those 4 tidbits that I kind of talked about, cash flowing asset, risk, leverage, and then the duality between thinking they're the best and being humble because they want to achieve more. Those are probably the core 4 of like the millionaires that like we've interviewed that I've noticed that those are the traits you really want to embody.
100%, 100%. Ending the show, I got 2 last questions. So obviously, well, first off, you started the Skool community, right? And you started on Skool.com. What was the idea behind starting that you didn't see previously from what you guys were doing?
Yeah, so there was a mastermind that we had gone to like pretty much like early 2023. Mm-hmm. And at that mastermind, like it was really like one of the first times that we were surrounded by like a lot of great 8, 7, and 9 figure entrepreneurs, like multiple of them, like in one room. And we were not at that level at all. And so like, it really like gave us the opportunity to be able to like really expose ourselves to like people that are crushing it. And they gave us a ton of insight on, you guys on a media channel, you're a media company. You're never going to reach the success you want to achieve if you think like a content creator. Like you guys need to build a business. Great business people are terrible content creators, and great content creators are terrible business people. It's just like not 90%, like there's like probably 10% that meet in the middle that are really good at both. And I hope that I would say that we kind of fit now into that 10%. But the majority of the time, like 90% of like business owners suck at content and 90% of content creators suck at business. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to try to get closer to that middle gap to where we could actually be great content creators, but also be great business owners. And so they let out the framework for building a media company for us, which was starting a newsletter. A lot of people don't know this about media companies, but big influencers that have large followings, their company's not really worth that much because Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook and YouTube own your audience. You don't own your audience. But if you have an email list on a newsletter, now you own your audience. And so your company 15 to 20X's in value. So that was one of the big things. A second was paid community was one of the ideas in regards to helping us like grow our business as a content company, a community for our followers and audience to connect and really get a ton of value of connecting with each other. And obviously with what we've done with Skool Mentors, like we have our live calls, classroom section, a bunch of other different things in the community. But that's really what the idea was. The overall goal is for us to keep building a media company and finding ways to monetize for their audience for something that they really want. And I think Skool Mentors is that product versus even just like merch or some sort of physical product. Like I think like a community is a lot more valuable for the Skool Hard Knocks followers. So that's really why we wanted to do it. And we landed on Skool just because it's the community platform that I've seen content creators rave about the most, that built communities and saw success on Skool. So that's why we went here.
And then second, obviously there's a lot of solo entrepreneurs. There are a lot of people like doing their thing. How would you say they should take it from just being a solo entrepreneur to actually becoming successful and wealthy and like more freedom in their life?
So the question is, how do you go from being a solo entrepreneur to a successful business owner?
Yeah.
Well, so if you read the book, The E-Myth, there's a really good distinction in there for solopreneurs about like, you need to not be the technician, the manager. Like pretty much an entrepreneur boils down into 3 categories. You're either a technician, you're a manager, or you're the visionary, the entrepreneur. You want to be the entrepreneur. You don't want to be the technician. You don't want to be the manager. And the way I mean by that is the technician is someone that's in the nitty gritty, the day-to-day, the grind of doing just the minimum wage activities in the business. The manager is someone that is overseeing the people, constantly having to make sure everyone's doing their job, things like that. The entrepreneur is the visionary that's solely focused on growing the company. The way you become a successful business owner is by getting yourself to that role, to where you're not doing tasks that are not generating you revenue. You're not doing tasks that is trying to oversight and make sure employees are doing what they need to do, because that's a manager. You want to be a visionary that can think about, how do I grow this company to the next level? And so the way that as a solopreneur you get out of that is you need to with the revenue that you generate, you need to start thinking about, how can I accumulate enough money to be able to hire the next piece on my chessboard? Like, how do I be able to, like, basically what you want to do is you need to like make you ever see like a company hierarchy chart of like you CEO and CMO and CTO and, marketer and, the copywriter, accountant, things like that. As a solopreneur, your name fits on all like 400 of those boxes.
Yeah.
Like whatever the company hierarchy chart is. If you're a solopreneur, you fit into all those little boxes. Your goal should be trying to like make money, cash flow. That's why I think like businesses that generate monthly recurring revenue are super, super great. Like a paid community agency, things like that to start are awesome, because like you get a new client, like you can use some of that money to reserve to go hire someone to come into the business to take your name off of one of those places on the board or multiple places on the board and write their name in. And that's how you grow a company. So as like a solopreneur, like your first goal should be trying to build cash flow and then hire out the places on the company hierarchy board that you are, so that you can really start to move yourself down the line to fit into, I'm the entrepreneur, just the visionary running this company, and everything else in this company. Like if you were to walk away from the business tomorrow, it would still run smoothly. Like you weren't even there. Like that is literally the key to building a successful company.
So we have a ending tradition on the show where you share your millionaire insight. So what do you think your millionaire insight would be for the audience?
Millionaire insight for the audience. The first thing would be is that if you have something that you want to do, and like you're debate if you have a dream that you want to do, that you like something that you really want to pursue, I highly recommend you go for it. Don't put it off. Don't try to come up with excuses to why you shouldn't do it. Like literally go after it. Just take the risk. Do it. I promise you, you're not going to die. Like just go after it, because even if you fail, the things that you learn from that experience are going to make you more successful in the end anyways. So that would be the first thing. Is just like, if you were holding yourself back from going after that thing that you want to do, like, oh, I want to start a business, start it. Like go after it. And I understand that there's some sort of like life circumstances that might make that hard. But at the end of the day, like the person that I work for every day is the 80-year-old version of me. Like the version of me that is on the, hopefully I live longer than 80, but the version of me that's like on my deathbed, looking back and trying to like be like, am I satisfied with the way that I live things? If you kind of like make decisions in life based on how proud would this make the 80-year-old version of myself, then you're going to make decisions that I think like when you look back in time, you're going to be a lot more satisfied with than ones that you weren't. And so that honestly would just be my insight, is that I feel that probably the best decision I ever made was starting Hard Knocks with my friends Josh and James, or just taking the leap to go on in entrepreneurship and not going the safe route, because it did work out. And along the way, like we have people that are always just like, they try to get in your ear and doubt you and things like that. But if you just listen to like what is the story that I want my 80-year-old self to be able to tell, you're just going to be a lot happier with the decisions that you make in life. I fully believe that.
I love that. Thank you for hopping on the show, and thank you for your insight today.
Absolutely. Braden, thanks so much for having me. Beyond the Business Podcast. Thanks for watching. Yes, sir. Y'all have a great day.